Hello, my amazing children. This is Grandma Carla, and I'm back with more of Pippi Longstocking. And you can see my location has changed a little bit. I am in my husband's school classroom, and it's summertime, and we run a summer camp over here, and my children this morning were coloring on the board and making pretty pictures on the board. So that's why I have nice pictures in the background today. Today we're going to read Chapter 8 of Pippi Dances with Burglars. Now you remember, a burglar is a name for a thief, someone who steals things, and Pippi is going to dance with the burglars. Oh my. After Pippi's performance at the circus, there wasn't a single person in the whole little town who didn't know how incredibly strong she was. There was even something about her in the newspaper, but people who lived elsewhere, of course, did not know who Pippi was. One dark autumn night, two tramps came trudging along the road past Villa Vellicula. The tramps were two shabby burglars who had set off to roam through the country looking for things to steal. They saw lights on in windows in Villa Vellicula, and they decided to go inside and ask for a sandwich. That night, Pippi had poured all of her gold coins out on the kitchen floor, and she was sitting there counting them. She wasn't actually very good at counting, but occasionally she did it all the same, just to keep things in order. 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 70, 10, 70, 11, 70, 12, 70, 13, 70, 17. I seem to get stuck on 70. Good gracious, surely there must be some other numbers in the number nebula. Oh, that's right, I remember now. 104, 1,000. That's certainly a lot of money, said Pippi. At that moment, someone pounded on the door. Come in or stay outside, whatever you like, yelled Pippi. I'm not forcing anybody. The door opened, and the two tramps came in. Just imagine how big their eyes got when they saw a little red-headed girl sitting on the floor all alone, counting money. Are you home by yourself? They asked slyly. Not at all, said Pippi. Mr. Nielsen is home too. The burglars didn't know, of course, that Mr. Nielsen was a little monkey who was asleep in his green-painted bed with a doll's blanket pulled over him. They thought that the master of the house was named Nielsen, and they gave each other a meaningful wink. Let's come back a little later, was what they meant by that wink. But to Pippi they said, well, we just came in to see what your clock says. They were so excited that they forgot all about the sandwiches. Big, strong fellows like you, and you don't even know what a clock says, said Pippi. Who brought you up, anyway? Haven't you ever heard a clock before? A clock is a little round thingamajig that says tick-tock and keeps going and going, but never gets to the door. If you know any other riddles, let's hear them, said Pippi to encourage them. The tramps thought that Pippi was too young to know about clocks, so without another word, they turned on their heels and left. I'm not asking you to play tic-tac-toe, Pippi yelled after them, but you could at least play along with my tick-tock riddle. I don't know what makes you tick, but never mind, go in peace, said Pippi, and she went back to counting her money. Safely outside, the tramps rubbed their hands with glee. Did you see all that money? Good heavens, said one of them. Yeah, we're really in luck, said the other one. All we have to do is wait until the girl and that Nielsen go to sleep. Then we'll sneak inside and get our mitts and all that money. They sat down under an oak tree in the garden to wait. It was drizzling and they were very hungry, so it wasn't really anything especially pleasant, but the thought of all that money kept their spirits high. The lights went out in all the other houses one by one, but in Villa Vellicula the lights stayed on. This was because Pippi was learning to dance a polka, and she didn't want to go to bed until she was positive that she could do it right. But finally, the windows in Villa Vellicula also went dark. The tramps waited quite a while to make sure that Mr. Nielsen would be asleep. Finally, they sneaked over to the kitchen door and got ready to pry it open with their burglary tools. Then one of them, whose name was Blom, by the way, happened to chance to try the door. It wasn't locked. "How stupid can people be?" he whispered to his partner. "Look at this. The door is open." "All the better for us," replied the partner, a black-haired man called Thunder Carlson by those who knew him. Thunder Carlson switched on his flashlight, and then they sneaked into the kitchen. No one was there. The room next to it was Pippi's bedroom, which was also where Mr. Nielsen's little doll bed stood. Thunder Carlson opened the door and cautiously peeked inside. It was nice and quiet. And he let the beam of his flashlight play over the room. When the beam came upon Pippi's bed, both tramps saw to their surprise that there was nothing but a pair of feet resting on the pillow. As usual, Pippi had her head under the covers at the foot of the bed. "That must be the girl," whispered Thunder Carlson to Blom, "and she seems to be sound asleep. But where on earth do you think Nielsen is?" "Mr. Nielsen, if you don't mind," said Pippi's calm voice from under the covers. "Mr. Nielsen is sleeping in the little green doll's bed." The tramps were so startled that they were just about to rush out, but then they happened to think about what Pippi had said. Mr. Nielsen was sleeping in the doll's bed, and in the beam of the flashlight they caught sight of the doll's bed and the little monkey who was lying in it. Thunder Carlson could not help laughing. "Blom," he said, "Mr. Nielsen is a monkey. Ha, ha, ha." "Well, what did you think he was?" said Pippi's calm voice from under the covers. "A lawnmower?" "Aren't your mama and papa home?" asked Blom. "Nope," said Pippi. "They're gone far away." Thunder Carlson and Blom were so delighted that they started chuckling. "Now listen here, little girl," said Thunder Carlson. "Come out of there so we can talk to you." "Nope," said Pippi. "I'm sleeping." "Does this have to do with more riddles? If that's the case, you'll have to answer this one first. What kind of clock goes and goes but never gets to the door?" Then Blom took a firm grip on the covers and lifted them off. "Can you dance a polka?" asked Pippi, giving him a serious look. "I can." "You ask too many questions," said Thunder Carlson. "Why don't you let us ask a few questions now? For instance, where did you put the money that you had on the floor a while ago?" "In the suitcase, in the cabinet," replied Pippi truthfully. Thunder Carlson and Blom both grinned. "I hope you won't mind, my dear, if we take it," said Thunder Carlson. "Oh, not at all," said Pippi. "Of course not." And with that, Blom went over and took out the suitcase. "I hope you won't mind, my dear, if I take it back," said Pippi as she climbed out of bed and went over to Blom. Blom didn't really know what had happened, but somehow the suitcase suddenly ended up in Pippi's hand. "Quit joking around," said Thunder Carlson angrily. "Give me that suitcase." He grabbed Pippi hard by the arm and tried to yank the plunder away from her. "Who says I was joking?" said Pippi as she lifted Thunder Carlson on top of the cabinet. The next instant Blom was sitting there too. Then both of the tramps were scared. They began to realize that Pippi was not exactly an ordinary girl, but the suitcase was still tempting them, and so they pushed aside their fear. "All together now, Blom," shouted Thunder Carlson, and then they jumped down from the cabinet and rushed at Pippi, who was holding the suitcase in her hand. But Pippi jabbed them with her finger, and they each landed in opposite corners of the room. Before they could get onto their feet, Pippi got out a rope, and quick as a wink, she tied up their arms and legs of both burglars, and now they started singing a different tune. "My dear sweet little girl," pleaded Thunder Carlson, "please forgive us. We were only joking. Don't hurt us. We're just a couple of poor old tramps who came in to ask for a little food." Blom even managed to shed a few tears. Pippi put the suitcase back in its place in the cabinet, and then she turned to face her prisoners. "Can either of you dance a polka?" Well," said Thunder Carlson, "I suppose we both can." "Oh, what fun," said Pippi, clapping her hands. "Couldn't we dance for a bit? I've just learned how, you see." Of course," said Thunder Carlson, rather surprised. Then Pippi got out her big pair of scissors and cut off the ropes that were holding her visitors. "But we don't have any music," said Pippi anxiously. Then she had an idea. "Could you blow on a comb?" she said to Blom. "Then I'll dance with him." And then she pointed to Thunder Carlson. Yes, of course, Blom could blow on a comb. And that's what he did, so loudly that it could be heard through the whole house. Mr. Nielsen was startled awake, and he sat up in bed just in time to see Pippi whirling around with Thunder Carlson. Her expression was dead serious, and she was dancing with such energy as if her life depended on it. Finally, Blom refused to blow on the comb any more because he claimed that it was tickling his lips so terribly, and Thunder Carlson's legs were starting to get tired since he had been trudging along the road all day long. "Oh, please, just a little bit more," begged Pippi as she kept on dancing, and there was nothing for Blom and Thunder Carlson to do but to keep going. When it was 3 in the morning, Pippi said, "Oh, I could keep on this like until next Thursday, but maybe you're tired or hungry." That was exactly what they were, although they hadn't hardly dared to say so. From the pantry, Pippi brought out bread and cheese and butter and ham and a cold roast and milk. And then they all sat down at the table, Blom and Thunder Carlson and Pippi, and they all ate until they were stuffed to the gills. Pippi poured a little milk in one ear. "It's good for an earache," she said. "You poor thing, do you have an earache?" asked Blom. "Nope," said Pippi, "but I might get one." Finally, both tramps stood up, thanked Pippi for the food, and said that they would have to be going. "I'm so glad you came. Do you really have to leave so soon?" said Pippi sadly. "I've never seen anyone who can dance a polka like you can, my sweet little sugar pig," she said to Thunder Carlson. "And to be sure to keep practicing on playing the comb," she told Blom. "Then you won't notice that it tickles." As they headed out the door, Pippi came running to give them each a gold coin. "You certainly earned it," she said. So now let's look at the pictures. The first picture is Pippi sitting on the floor counting all of her gold coins. So gold is worth quite a bit of money. So she has quite a few gold coins that she is counting, and those burglars sure wanted some. Here's a picture of the flashlight that the burglars were using to search Pippi's room. Here is what happened to the burglars when Pippi tied them up. She tied their feet and their arms because they were misbehaving, weren't they? And Pippi is so strong, she was able to get them all tied up. But then she asked them if they could dance the polka, and she decided to cut their ties so that she cut the rope so that they could dance the polka with her. And that's the end of the pictures, and that's the end of chapter 8. And this is Grandma Carla, and I love you.